For more on the latest developments, get to Dan Senor, our friend, former foreign policy advisor in the Bush administration, host of the podcast, called me back. We've talked a lot about this over the years, actually, Dan. I'm going to ask you in a little bit different way. I mean, you can just present the facts, obviously, but we both believe that, and I think the president believes Iran, and obviously Israel believes Iran should never have a nuclear weapon. We've been hearing they're getting closer and closer and closer. I don't know whether a deal was possible, but in some respects, should we view this as almost welcome that this is going to come to a head and it's going to be decided before Iran actually has the bomb?
Yeah, Joe, the concern, of course, was as Iran was getting closer and closer and closer, that removed optionality for Israel, because any operation Israel would want to take would take a lot of lead time, a lot of preparation. So as you know, for the longest time, we heard that the term was breakout time. How long does Iran have to break out to a nuclear weapons capability? Meaning it has all the ingredients, all the tools, everything it needs. It's perfecting its processes. But when the supreme leader says go, start, like build the activate the program, that doesn't mean launch a weapon, but activate the capability. So we now can tell the world, we Iran have a nuclear weapon, which means that creates an umbrella over the region where no one can ever respond to Iran, and Iran would hold the region and a large part of the world hostage. Once Iran can activate that, they go to breakout. That's the window that has been shrinking for some time. It was years. Then it was months. I remember, Joe, being on your show over the last few years, and when Prime Minister Netanyahu would come to the joint session of Congress back in 2015, there was a concern that the breakout time was shrinking to months. Then it was weeks, and now I'm hearing from Israeli sources it was even getting to days. So once they're in ability to have the capacity to activate in a matter of days, that just Israel's losing all its optionality to take it out, and they clearly had as someone put it to me, a U.S. administration that was somewhere between allowing and supporting, meaning the only debate was whether or not the U.S. was going to be actively involved or just give Israel the green light. But in no time were they dealing with an administration that's been in power since January, it's been in office since January, that was going to stop it, that was going to put up a red light. So when all those factors lined up, which is they had an administration that was allowing Israel to do what it needed to do, and the race to breakout was just days, maybe weeks away, Israel had to do it.
Allowing and supporting, somewhere in between, that's a good way of putting it. I can just remember, Dan, when you were on and we were talking, the last time that I won't call it an opening, but there was conflict broke out between Iran and Israel, and then Iran, responded with what didn't seem to be a very big response, and then it was said, both sides sort of said, okay, we're done. And I wouldn't say disappointment's not the right word, but this had to be taken care of at some point. And when it wasn't going to happen then, it's like, okay, if not now, if not then, when are you actually going to grab the bull by the horns and make sure that this doesn't happen? And no one, welcome's the wrong word. No one is happy that this is happening. But the world is a tough place. And already I'm seeing certain politicians say it's a reckless move and it's this and it's that. How is it reckless when the very existence of Israel is at stake?
Well, let me just refer to something you just said a moment ago, which was the operation back in October. So there were two operations that Israel conducted against Iran, one in April of 24 and the other one in October of 24. What was striking to me about the one in October of 24 is about a third of the Israeli Air Force was deployed, even more, a higher percentage of the Israeli Air Force was deployed last night and will be over the next couple of days. But in October of 24, about a third of the Israeli Air Force was deployed. And the Israelis I was speaking to said, look, we've taken out all of their, most, if not all of their S-300s, which are their air defense capabilities, their capacity to, kind of dominate the sky, if you will, from the ground in Iran. Israel had taken those out. Those are not easy to repair, and they're not easy to replenish. And once Israel had done that back in October, as one guest on my podcast put it, Rich Goldberg, he said, the Ayatollah has no clothes. Iran is totally naked. So now it's just a matter of when Israel wants to do the big operation. But that October operation created a lot of space and time for Israel to do what it did last night. And I think it will be doing over the next few days. To your question, I've got to tell you, I've looked at some of these responses from some members of the U.S. Senate, Jack Reed, Chris Murphy. They're shocking. They're really shocking. Does anybody believe that Iran inching this close to a nuclear weapon, that would actually bring peace and stability to the world? That would bring, forget about to Israel. What about to the Middle East? What about our other allies in the Middle East? What about to Europe? What about to the broader world? I mean, if Israel, here's one way to think about it, Joe. Israel was criticized for taking out Nasrallah and Hezbollah, which was Iran's most important ally. Israel was pressured for years to reach some kind of peace deal with Assad's regime in Syria. All right. Israel was pressured for many years to give up the Golan Heights. Israel was, what I'm describing here right now is basically the proxy system that surrounded Israel. And Israel systematically took out Iranian proxies. The regime in Syria fell, the Assad regime, after being in power for 53 years. Iran was at its weakest moment. This is actually the most responsible and safest time to do what Israel's doing, partly because the whole system of Iran's has been being broken down over the last few months. And if you look at the people who've been criticizing what Israel's doing every step of the way, the pager attack, taking out Nasrallah, taking out Hezbollah's offensive capabilities, now taking out Iran, every step of the way, the critics that have been saying Israel's been making a mistake with this quote unquote escalation. Just imagine where we would be today if Israel had not been doing these things. And again, ask it also not just from Israel's perspective, but from the U.S. perspective.